Hi, welcome to Wandering into the Woods, a podcast brought to you by the creators of Adventures with BG. I'm Linda,
And this is Jarrett.
and today we'll be telling you about our 2021 road trip out to West Texas, beginning with our trip out to X Bar Ranch and Sonora Caverns. We'll also be talking about our small road trip out to Fort McCavett. But first, let's dive into our trip out into El Dorado, Texas, into X Bar Ranch. That was the first road trip for our new vehicle, and we were celebrating Jared's return stateside, and so it was it was a good 3.5. What would you say, Jared? 3.5, 3.25 hour trip from Austin.
Yeah, around 3 hours.
Okay. And we headed out. It was regular weekday, summer weekday. During the day, traffic wasn't bad at all, but keep in mind it was during COVID and during the week. Um, X Bar Ranch, although it is technically near El Dorado, Texas, it's really isolated. And that's precisely why we chose it. It's an isolated site where you can do a lot of stargazing and just enjoy nature. It is a series of cabins, and small cabins and also large luxury cabins. You can go to their website for X Bar Ranch Nature Retreat, and there you'll be able to see that they have a whole range of amenities for those seeking a reprieve from the hustle and bustle of the city. Just to give you a brief overview of what they have, their website includes attractions such as 2 sand piles, a shaded swing set, and a playhouse, a pool, horseshoes, washers, and ladder golf. That's not to mention the 16 miles of hiking and mountain biking trails, nature photography, and nearby attractions. Jarrett was asking me what the playhouse was, and the playhouse is a place where not just the individuals in the smaller lodges, but individuals in any of the lodges can come. It's kind of like a community house.
Uh,
It has Jared has, can you remind me? We had a sink there, a microwave,
yeah, it had all your
stove.
basic kitchen and cooking stuff if you needed it.
Yeah, a living area, several dining tables to eat on.
Yeah.
And it was just a place to hang out and relax and hang out with your friends in case your lodgings were too small or you just wanted a bigger community space to hang out.
I'm pretty sure you can rent it for other attractions as well. So you could have like a business or a wedding or whatever
Right,
family gathering, and you could just get that building.
exactly.
Just think the name Playhouse was weird for it.
Yeah. And so that was a place we hung out with and we hung out in and actually had a little game night ourselves there. We played one of the mint games there one night and but before we played the mint game, upon arrival, we settled into our lodge and we stayed in the New Mexico Lodge and sorry, Mexico Lindo Lodge. And in there we had a little kitchenette, a restroom, a small restroom for ourselves, and a queen size bed and a small table.
Yep.
And once we got settled, I took a nap, and then before even getting settled in, so the first thing we did is we drive up to the playhouse. You're completely by yourself. We were completely by ourselves. Nobody's there. The owners have taken care of the fact that, it's COVID times and also you're purposely staying in this isolated area. So you just walk into the playhouse. The keys are ready for you. You sign in and you just go over to your lodge.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the summer, so it was hot.
Yeah.
The AC took a bit to cool the area, but it did cool the cabin. Jared, first impressions?
I don't know. It seems like any other sort of Airbnb sort of thing that we've gone to. Just a wilderness and, a fancy cabin.
Yeah, and it feels really nice. So we settled. Like I said, I took a nap, had some coffee, and then we went out to Sonora Caverns. So Sonora Caverns, for those of you that are unfamiliar with them, you understood the signs way better than me. What is Sonora Caverns?
So the Sonora Caverns are caves in the Sonora area. They were formed probably 100 million years ago. They're kind of unique because it has to do with gases coming up, mixing with aquifer water, and then actually dissolving the limestone and other stone in the area.
And I'm pretty sure, as smart as you are, you don't remember all of that off the top of your head.
No.
Are you quoting a site?
Yeah, it's Wikipedia.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I remember they told us in the tour.
Because I was like, man, that's some great like picto. What do you call that memory? I was like, that's some great memory Jared has there for those terms.
Yeah, so I think it's one of the only caves that I've visited that at least they've said that. Most is water forms them and things like that.
So how is this one different than the one Longhorn Caverns, for example?
I mean, this one had to do with acid dissolving it instead of it just being carved away by water.
Okay.
And I guess if it matters, it's also on this one. Caverns of Sonora is also on a fault,
Uh-huh.
so that played into it as well.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was too busy being amazed by all the beautiful like formations to understand, even try to understand all the science behind them.
Yeah.
So just as FYI, like logistics, if you're planning a trip there, especially in the summer, it does get hot in there. Plan for going over an hour without any drinks. They don't let you take water
Mhm.
in there. You can't take bags in there either. So keep that in mind. If you're going during pandemic times and you're trying to purchase a ticket online, keep in mind that what you're purchasing is a group ticket. So I believe it was about $120 for both of us. But we could have taken more people.
Up to 6.
Yeah. And that sounds right because it's actually if you arrive there at the place at the site, it'll be $20 per person, but you might be grouped with other individuals. So keep that in mind if you're trying to purchase tickets online to visit the caverns. There's plenty of parking there.
They also have camping and RVing there. So if you're on a road trip and you're just heading down 10, it's definitely worthwhile stop. And it can be, one of the places you stay for the night as well.
Yeah, I believe they had paused camping during the summer, but they were just restarting it when we were visiting.
I don't remember.
Something like
I
that.
just know they had campsites and RVs.
Yeah. So really beautiful, nice, peaceful place. They have some beautiful animals there on site, such as several peacocks, a white peacock too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And all for you to, observe and just be one with nature while you wait for your tour. But keep in mind, during the summer, it does get hot, so you probably either want to grab either those early morning tickets or later in the day.
There's also a couple of different types of tours. There's a standard one we went on, and then eventually they'll open back up. They're more intense ones, like a discovery and a photograph. I asked about it while we were there. They said they hadn't opened it up yet. I'm sure that they'll have some sort of Facebook message or whatever social media site they're on. So that's something I'm definitely interested in. Right now, there's only like 1 to 2 miles that you can go to on the normal tour, but I guess they've explored about 7 miles or so, and I don't know how much the Discovery Tour takes you on, but I bet it's a lot more than what we got to saw and actually, take some crawling. As far as the cave, you walk into, a big gated door, as most caves have if you've ever been to one. It's to keep, the riffraff out, and so make sure people aren't going there at night and dying and vandalizing it. And inside the cave, it's really warm. It's about 72 degrees all year round, but it's 98% humidity, which gives it a feel of about 85 degrees. So there's no need to take any warm clothing, like leave it. Even in the winter, it'll just get in the way and you're just going to take it off when you get inside. The only thing they let us take in was a camera and us.
Right.
And our camera was phone, so, But yeah, you go to the big gate, they open it up. You enter a room at first before you head down, and it has a recreation of how the cave was found, and apparently that is a dog chased a raccoon or some other small animal into a hole, and that's how they found it. So they had just have a recreation, and then after that, you walk down into the cave itself. There's about 360 stairs through all of it, and most of them are, I think, front-loaded in the beginning. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't recall, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, and then you go down. You start out in a section where when they first found it, everyone touched everything and looked at how cool it was and ran their fingers over it. So
and you can tell?
Yeah, so it's a dead section.
As in humans killed it. So,
Yeah, stalactites, stalagmites have been broken and stuff and have stopped
Jared,
growing.
what are stalactites and what are stalagmites?
Stalactites hang from the ceiling, and stalagmites are on the ground.
Cool. And what was the one that connects?
A column. That's when they grow together.
Just
Um,
keep those in mind if you go to visit the caverns. Remember that for your quiz.
yeah, and they've got soda straws, popcorn, all sorts of other things too. But they've got definitely tons of the two basic ones. In that first section, they keep an eye on you to make sure that you're going to behave. And if you are a rowdy guest that likes to touch everything, they'll actually take you out on this shortcut and send you on your way, not let you continue on, so you'll miss the best parts of the tour. After that, you move into the partially living section. So things are kind of growing here. And things start getting interesting and ramped up. I believe this is where that big open area is, that if you take the Discovery Tour, they actually let you rappel down.
Yes, that sounds correct based off what he showed us.
Yeah. So then you do that for a while, and then at the very end, you hit the fully living, and I mean, there's formations growing in water. There's actually water in part of the cave. I think they called it lake.
Yeah, don't touch anything.
Yeah. Okay. Don't touch anything. But yeah, so there's like running water actually in that back part. There's tons of living formations, drops fall, and things like that. So it's very cool. It's one of the top show caves in the world, and they let you get incredibly close to all these formations, which is like the first time I've experienced being that close.
And then that's why I really have to reiterate, don't touch anything because you'll
Yeah.
be tempted.
You'll want to.
Yeah.
It's hard not to, but you'll have to, fight through it. So it's definitely worth a trip if you're in that area. I mean, for those who love going to Big Bend and, get on 10, pass through Sonora, make a stop one day and at least do the basic tour. And then after that, we headed back and we went, continued our adventure at X Bar Ranch.
Yeah, our tour guide was great, very knowledgeable, very approachable as well. They keep the tour entertaining.
Yeah.
Although they are strict about making sure you're not touching anything. They are observing you and making sure that you are a good guest of the area. And that's just to make sure that they do preserve and maintain the what remains of the caverns. And there's unfortunately a few examples of people having destroyed the beauty of some of the caverns, like for example, the butterfly formation that
Yep.
used to exist.
It still partially exists.
It still partially exists.
Someone took a wing.
Yeah, and so that's an example of why they have to be strict, and you have to be mindful of yourself that you're not touching any of the formations in the cave. But beautiful to see, beautiful formations. I really recommend it. It's just a sight to behold. Take your tennis shoes or shoes with good grip because it might get your balance will be tested.
So the next morning, we woke up, had breakfast. They had some pastries there, and I think oatmeal is what we had.
Yeah, we had oatmeal for breakfast while we were there, and coffee. Made ourselves some coffee.
Yeah, and in the common house, they have maps of the trails. They've got 16 miles, but from my short experience, the only easy one to really get to is the 3 mile green loop. So that's what I did in the morning, and Linda just stayed back and read and chilled.
Yeah, it was really nice. They have like a little bird watering station where it's a fountain where birds can come, and they came to, and I was reading right by it. It was really a really nice morning. We were having a cooler July than usual. And it was just really nice to read and have the birds and the sound of water nearby.
Yeah, they also had butterflies too.
Yes.
At the back because they have a bunch of flowers that they keep well maintained.
Yeah, so just a beautiful sight in case you want to meditate or do something peaceful, relaxing. Or if you want to go take a hike, as Jared did, then you have plenty of miles to explore.
Yep. So you don't get too far away. It's a 3 mile loop or so. And it takes you, the actual main area and where our little cabins were is up on a hill. So you go out behind the pool, is where I started, but you could also just start by the cabins depending on which way, because it's a loop, and that's where they both are. I went down by the pool, walked down. It's down quite a bit of a ways, kind of steep. Then similar to hill country hikes if you've ever done those. So you just go down, You get to a pretty flat area. A couple of creeks run through there. There's a little bit of limestone. Tons of insect noise. There's plenty of grasshoppers out there making noise and jumping around, and some birds as well. So I know it's a big area for birders as well to come. I don't know what time of the year because I'm not a birder myself. I just know that they were advertising that as well.
For sure.
So plenty of bird noises. It sounded nice. I'm sure people who are definitely into that would get more out of it than just me enjoying the general sounds of nature. Um, Pretty easy trail to follow. The only time I got a little confused was at the very end, and they have signs that's on a tree that's fallen over, and they're pointed in the correct direction. But I thought too much about it, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to go the direction they were pointing originally. But it's pretty easy to sort out. And like I said, you're not too far. You can see the cabin and the common house from a lot of the trail, and there's also a large cross on a hill that you can see as well. And so if you keep those two things in mind, you can kind of navigate yourself if you were to have any issue. But yeah, well-marked trail, and they've got markers every now and again to keep you on your way. So pretty easy for a 3-mile hike. Not super easy, but definitely not tough. So a lot of people can do it. Surprisingly, like randomly, I was able to get their general Wi-Fi while walking. So that's
Oh,
how I
cool.
knew. That's
Yeah.
how I knew I wasn't too far from the cabin itself. Because I could still pick up Wi-Fi on occasion.
Okay.
Yeah. So then we made it back. After that, we decided there was still plenty of time in the day, so we decided to take a trip out to Fort McCavitt.
So Fort McCavitt, it's a fort that was built in 1852. And yeah, Miss Beegee's passionate about history, as you can hear her. And it was actually built to protect West Texas settlers and serve as a rest stop for people that were heading out to California. And this is per the Texas Historical Commission website. From my memory of our tour there, it's first of all, was there a fee, Jarrett?
So it's $4 for adults, 3 for seniors, 5 and under are free, and they have a family fee, which is $8, which is 2 adults, 1 child, or 1 adult, 2 children. So it saves a little bit of money that way. They also let you do school reservation group, so $1 a person for that. So if any schools ever listen to this and want to take a cool trip and hit a whole bunch of forts along the way, you can definitely do Fort McCavitt for a reduced price.
Yeah, and we'll talk about our experience there in a bit, but first I'd like to go into the history because, we're just going to go into the overall picture, but it is a great historical place to visit, particularly for us Texans. It was a site that was built to protect settlers while they were settling the area, and were usually the white people that were coming into Texas. But interestingly, this fort was mostly made up of African American soldiers who were settled there to fight the Native American forces. So this site is a place of the intersection of Texas history and how complicated it got as the
Mhm.
years as our history evolved. And while the soldiers were there, they focused mostly on their day-to-day lives. It wasn't Most of their days did not involve fighting. I mean, a lot of it did, from time to time, but most and
At
the
this fort, particularly. Yeah.
yeah,
Most of them just learned trade. So they were farming their own food and doing, leather work, masonry. So they were learning skills like that there.
right. And instead of actually fighting, which is I think overall a great thing that they
Yeah.
didn't have to fight much, and instead got to focus on improving their
I think
lives.
they built roads for the local communities and put in telegraph poles and things too.
Right,
Maybe some railroad tracks.
and they were like the first weather people too, because they started keeping track of the
Uh-huh.
rainfall,
And the
etc.
logs. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a great place of Texas history. A lot of innovation occurred there. And it was a little bit hard for us to find through the websites, but from what we remembered from our visit there, the site also had some involvement in the Civil War.
It did.
And even after the Civil War, it remained open. The site remained open as an active military site until um, the end of the sorry,
1883.
1883, sorry,
Yeah.
until around 1883. After that, the fort was abandoned and
It was abandoned by the military, but it was
yes.
auctioned off. And so they
Okay.
auctioned the buildings, and random people could buy them, use them for warehouse to live in, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So the folks that we didn't talk about, but Scabtown was the associated town of followers. Clothes washer, gambling sites, prostitutes, moonshiners, things like that. So Scabtown sprung up in the immediate area to support the fort with, civilian services. And, I assume that a lot of those folks are the ones who went to the auction and purchased, or, rich white people.
Yeah, and so the site did maintain and still has a lot of its original structures,
Hmm.
including
Apparently, that was some of it after the auction, depending on who bought it,
uh-huh.
depended, I guess, on, the serviceability and the durability of, how well it was upkept.
Right.
Yeah.
And you will see that some of the structures are gone, completely gone, or in great disrepair,
Mhm.
including the officers' quarters. Although the officers' quarters,
Are you talking about the commanding officers' quarters?
yeah,
Yeah, commanding officers. So there was a bunch of different types of officers.
right, that's right. So the commanding officers' quarters were actually burned down. So I remember standing there and wondering, like, what happened here?
Yeah.
And I read on the website, oh, it's the building actually burned in 1940. But most of it is most of the structures around the area are in great shape, and you can go in there and see, what how a soldier might have lived in in their designated area, or what
Yeah.
their day to day life would have been.
Mm. And I mean, the enlisted were just in long buildings with a bed, and that was about it, and a footbox. And your various degree of officers had it significantly much better, and apparently could bring their family along
Yeah,
and live in a duplex sort of looking, or a single room house. Seemed like a pretty sweet deal.
but according to what we were also seeing, it was also not recommended.
Yeah, but it looked like, I don't know, from the way they had them set up, that everyone was doing it anyways. Like,
Yeah,
we don't recommend this, but then everyone was just doing it anyways because
right.
they were just stationed out in I guess what would have been the middle of nowhere in the late 1800s.
Right. And so we got to walk around the area. We also went on a hike.
We did. It's down to the spring that they probably would have gotten water from, and there was a mill out there, or was it oh, the thing for fire?
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Like what people can make pizzas in.
Like an oven?
Yeah, but the word with a K. So, someone may listen to this and just be screaming inside.
I don't know what it's called.
So kiln is what I was thinking of. It may be a kiln out there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it looked pretty cool. The trail wasn't really easily marked in my opinion. We got lost trying to come back, so there was that. But it was really nice once you go through a sunny area and then you get to the shaded area where the trees and the creek is,
Hmm.
and you just get to see what life might have been like for the people that were using the creek for their day to day lives, including many women that apparently became laundresses, or started doing sewing for soldiers, and they became independent ladies that way.
Yep.
Some of them ended up marrying some of the
I'm
soldiers.
sure plenty of them.
And so it was interesting to see, how back in the day some women got to make something for themselves just because of the opportunities nature offered them there,
Yeah, and I'm sure, marrying an officer was way better than living in Scabtown.
for sure.
Yeah. I looked at the map, and it is a lime kiln. So I'm not sure what they were forging in that, but they had a very hot oven down by the spring. After that, we headed back to X Bar, where we spent. It was evening at this point, night. The rest of the night just kind of swimming before heading to bed.
Yeah, it seemed like we had the place to ourselves. It felt that way.
Definitely.
I don't know if it's true, but
I'm pretty sure, at
we,
least that main area.
yeah, we didn't run across anybody, and we were able to hang out in the pool while the stars were above us. Just had a good time hanging out.
Yep. And that was it for this portion of the trip, which was the first and second day.
Yeah, we went to bed and got ready for a road trip and our trip over to Seminole Canyon State Park, which we'll talk about in our next episode.
Yep.
Well, that marks the end of the first leg of our adventure out in West Texas in the summer of 2021. We look forward to telling you about the rest of our adventures in West Texas. If you'd like to learn more about our adventures during this past summer and other trips across the last couple of years, you may visit our social media websites. We are at Adventures with BG on Facebook and Adventures with BG on Instagram. Those are the letters B and G.
If you could give us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, it'd be greatly appreciated. It helps us grow and find new listeners.
And as always, stay safe as you wander into the woods.